April 10th, 2021, WrestleMania 37. A day which made all sorts of history. It was the first time fans were back in an arena after a year of having no fans in attendance. Bad Bunny made his incredible wrestling debut and showed the world that celebrity wrestling was possible. But the most important history made that night was Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, main eventing night 1 of WrestleMania 37 with the SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. Now, since it has been a year since that match has taken place, I thought I would take a look back at the match and why it is not only the greatest WrestleMania match in history, but why it is one of the greatest wrestling matches ever. Bianca Belair vs. Sasha Banks main eventing night 1 of WrestleMania 37 was an instant classic. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair not only made history by becoming the 4th and 5th women to ever main event a WrestleMania, but they became the first ever African American woman to ever main event a WrestleMania. Those two put on match of the night and match of the weekend as it showcased the talent of both of these women. Sasha Banks showed why she is a future Hall of Famer guaranteed, and Bianca showed us why she's on track to becoming a huge star in the company as if she isn't already. She has the potential to be the next Roman Reigns in terms of star power, and I stand by that 100%. Bianca Belair was only 32 years old at the time, and as we see, she has a lot more accomplishments to make in her career. Now, the build up to the match itself was a roller coaster. Bianca Belair won the Royal Rumble of that year, and from then on, it was pretty obvious who she was going to face. The Raw Women's Title scene was an absolute mess due to quick changes in plans, the crumbling of storylines that had put in place, so Bianca challenged Sasha Banks on Friday Night SmackDown, and we were underway. From here, Sasha and Bianca were partners for a while, trying to capture the women's tag team title belts, and not only was that confusing because they were on rivals on track for WrestleMania, but it also didn't make any sense to pair them up together. Regardless, they were able to make a clear story. Bianca had been told over and over again that she was a rookie that was just riding on the coattails of success of women like Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks was at the forefront of the women's evolution, and Bianca was only a start because of the history Sasha Banks had made herself. From February to March, Bianca and Sasha would team up on multiple occasions, losing every time they teamed up. The two would then eventually have a falling out that made no sense before the WrestleMania match. However, a lot of us watching that night was not prepared for the match that we were going to get. It was April 10th, 2021, night 1 of WrestleMania 37. It was announced that Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair's battle for the SmackDown Women's Championship would main event the first night of WrestleMania. This was honestly unbelievable when I first read it, and I thought it was somebody just posting nonsense wrestling tweets. However, when Drew McIntyre vs. Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship opened night 1, I knew they were serious. History was going to be made, and I wasn't mentally prepared for it. The match itself had everything you could have wanted. When I tell you that they were match of the night, they were match of the night. You had story and tension built up throughout the entirety of the match that paid off in the end. You had incredible moves and incredible counters. The two gave the crowd a night to remember and a match they could talk about for the ages. Once the referee rang the bell, it was an instant classic and they could have not done any better. Watching Bianca Belair cry during the match and seeing how many yes chants the entire stadium was doing was such a feel-good moment. The match itself was perfect in length and honestly had great pacing. The match was so important and so significant and so good that WWE themselves put it as their number 1 top moment in their top 10 WrestleMania 37 moments, and they put Roman Reigns pinning Edge and Daniel Bryan at the same time at number 2. That just shows you that they knew how good the match was. Sasha Banks was doing everything you could expect from Sasha Banks. She was doing dives, crossbodies, meteoras, using her speed, her wrestling IQ, everything she could to keep Bianca down, but Bianca never stayed down. Bianca kept using her power on Sasha, but Sasha always found a way to avoid her using her veteran techniques and wrestling intelligence. The near falls had everyone on the edge of their seats as we truly didn't know who was going to win. Bianca catching Sasha Banks as she dove through the middle rope and then proceeding to hold her over her head as she walked up the steel steps was really impressive and something no one had ever done before. Guys, I'm not even doing their match any justice whatsoever. You have to go watch it in its entirety. It's on WWE's YouTube. They posted the full match. Please go watch it. The match had several moments that will never be forgotten, and for me, that moment was when Bianca Belair finally using her hair whip on Sasha Banks, and that was a shot heard around the world. In the end, the good guy overcame the bad guy as Bianca Belair was able to hit the KOD onto Sasha Banks, and 1, 2, 3. Not only was a star was born, but a new SmackDown Women's Champion was crowned. Bianca had cemented herself as a key athlete in the WWE. It was the most memorable match of WrestleMania 37, and it is still talked about to this day, and more so than Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair's main eventing winner-take-all match at WrestleMania 35. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair proved why people care about women's wrestling, and even more so why Bianca Belair is an incredible performer and a future Roman Reigns. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks in the main event of WrestleMania for 37 for the SmackDown Women's Championship will go down in history, and I will even say it is more important than the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania 35. The reason why I say that is because Charlotte Flair honestly tainted that matchup, and it kind of left a lot of things unresolved. The people wanted Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch at Mania, but we didn't get that. At WrestleMania 37, however, we got what we wanted, no extras included. Just Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair in the spotlight, no other women added. They made extremely important history, become the first ever black women to ever main event a WrestleMania in its 38-year history, and Bianca made history by becoming a women's champion after I think it was like a year or two of being on the main roster, the fastest I've ever seen somebody get a title besides Paige. Little did we know that Bianca Belair wasn't done making history just yet once we saw her win the SmackDown Women's Championship. After everything was said and done, their match is wrestling at its finest, and it is overall a masterclass of what wrestling should be. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked the video, be sure to light that like button on fire and subscribe to join the flock. Please comment to let me know what you thought of Bianca Belair vs. Sasha Banks at WrestleMania 37. This is Phoenix4568 signing off, and until next time.